So, good evening, everyone. It is the meeting of the Natick Select Board for January 10th. It is 6:37, I'll call it.
Can you unmute us, Pegasus? Thank you.
From the top? From the top. It's now 6:38 p.m. This is the meeting of the Natick Select Board on January 10th, 2024. I call this meeting to order. We're going to do a roll call vote to enter into executive session for the following reasons. A, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation where an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, Linda Valentin et al. Versus Town of Natick et al. Docket number 21-CV-10830, District Court, Massachusetts. B, pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Town Administrator. Do I have a motion to go into exec session?
Motion. So
Second.
So that is moved by Ms. Pope and seconded by Mr. Joseph. I have to do a roll call. We'll do Mr. Sidney first because he's on.
Aye.
Ms. Pope?
Aye.
Ms. Coughlin?
Aye.
Mr. Joseph?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we are going to go into exec session. This part of the meeting is not open to the public. We expect this to last approximately 1 hour. For those participating via Zoom or watching at home, I would say probably tune back in here almost about 7:30 and then you should be okay. So we're now in exec session. All right, we're back in from exec session and going back into open session. For those in the room, I'd like us to stand for a Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Announcements. The first one is intention to call spring annual town meeting in 2024, and I will read that. The Select Board hereby gives public notice of its intention to call 2024 annual town meeting on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024 at Natick High School at 7:30 p.m. All articles requested for inclusion in the warrant for the 2024 spring annual town meeting must be received by the office of the Select Board, Natick Town Hall, 13 East Central Street, Natick, Mass, by 5 p.m. on Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. The Select Board encourages petitioners and others submitting articles to provide such materials electronically to selectboard@natickma.org by such date and time. If submitting through this format, petitioners are advised to request a read receipt to verify proper and timely.
Rich, hang on one sec. Pegasus isn't on yet. Sorry about that. Let me just see if we can get him on.
It should be live.
It's not coming up on Zoom though.
Joan, can you hear the meeting or see the meeting?
How's that?
Oh, here it comes.
Yeah, there we go.
There we are.
So it was
All right.
Pegasus
From the top.
Zoom live.
Yeah, I'll do it from the top again. Said, the Select Board hereby gives public notice of its intention to call 2024 spring annual town meeting on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024 at Natick High School, starting at 7:30 p.m. All articles requested for inclusion in the warrant for the 2024 Spring Annual Town Meeting must be received by the Office of Select Board, Natick Town Hall, 13 East Central Street, Natick, Mass., by 5 p.m. on Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. The Select Board encourages petitioners and others submitting articles to provide such materials electronically to selectboard@natickma.org by such date and time. If submitting through this format, petitioners are advised to request a read receipt to verify proper and timely receipt by the Select Board's office. The Select Board further encourages that articles be submitted in narrative format only, and that maps and other supplementary material not be included as part of the warrant article. So that takes care of that. Massachusetts Racial Equity Advancement and Collaborative Hub. Mr. Erickson, do you want to do an update on that?
Yes, and I will, with your
Troy, yeah.
permission, also look to Troy Smith.
Yes, please.
Just going to see if he's on. I know
He is. I see him right in the middle of Zoom.
I'm just going to ask him to unmute to see if he's there. Just while we're getting Troy on, Troy, just for those in the audience, is our Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Outreach. This is a program that Troy found and submitted to through MAPC. It's a continuation of the REMAP, or the Racial Equity Municipal Action Plan work that the town did, that MAPC is advancing. And if Troy is on, and I see that he is unmuted, Troy, are you available to provide a little bit of just high-level background on this program and for the board and
Yes.
for the public? Great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to have the opportunity to be with you this evening. I had the pleasure of being able to get a submission that had been accepted. And so we are moving forward with this very significant initiative. If you may have had a chance to look at the link, but as you know, if you read it, you know about the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, which is overseeing the administrative aspects of the program, along with being able to draw from the work by the GARE organization, which is providing the curriculum, and that's the Government Alliance on Race and Equity organization. And so we're going to have an opportunity to work together. There are going to be 9 to 10 municipalities that will have an opportunity to go to the federal building in Boston to get technical support on issues around equity, inclusion, diversity, and there'll be a lot of collaboration and opportunity to also connect with peers. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this. I'm also excited to be able to mention that we, as of today, we have 9 cross-departmental members. It's a combination of cross-departmental members from Town Hall, as well as an individual who is involved in doing outreach work in Framingham and Natick. And we'll also be bringing in a member from one of our partner organizations, Spark Kindness. So the goal is to really work together collaboratively in being able to move forward on our issues and our initiatives on equity, outreach, and inclusion. I'd like to thank everyone here for your support, and thank you for the warm reception and support from the Select Board and town administration and our various officials. We really appreciate it, and should be an exciting, productive initiative.
Thanks very much, Troy.
Any questions? I just wanted to highlight.
Congratulations, Troy.
Great work.
Thank you.
I thought it was a great application by Troy, and it's just a continuation of the great work that we're trying to do around equity, inclusion, and belonging, outreach, engagement, diversity, all of the above, as an organization and within the community.
And I just want to say thank you so much for all the great work that was done, going back to the diversity task force, and especially the work that was done by the REMAP group, whose work really lays the foundation that we are able to build upon. And we have a few REMAP members who will be joining us in this endeavor as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Troy.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Troy.
you, Troy.
Okay.
Okay, on to dog license renewals. I can read this one. This is a nice short one. All dogs 6 months of age or older must be licensed with the town clerk's office. Mass General Laws, Chapter 137. Licenses must be renewed annually by March 1st. Failure to do so will result in a $50 late fee. Failure to license a dog shall be punishable by a fine of $100 according to Natick Town Bylaws, Article 50, Section 16-7. So please register your dogs by March 1st. Thank you. Next up, we've got the town census reminder. Mr. Erickson, do you want to do that one? And I'll do the next two.
Sure. Sorry, I had pulled up for the next two, not the census ones. Let me pull that one up. Another reminder from our clerk's office team that the town census is due. This is a really important annual occurrence for the town. It really helps us with, among other things, just general record keeping, but also provides us with a lot of important data that we can then use in applications for grant programs, understanding population projections, understanding other projections that have impacts on Mass General Law, federal law, and other impacts. It's not obviously the U.S. Census, but it is still extremely important for everybody to fill out their census forms and get it back to the town clerk for proof of residency, and also just for the information that we glean from the census. Please make sure to complete your form accurately, listing each of the residents in your address as of January 1, 2024. So if somebody moved in on January 2nd, do not include them. If they were there on December 31st, do include them. And please get that to the clerk's office as soon as possible in this year. If you have changes to the form, please mark the changes directly on the form, sign and date, and return to the clerk's office. Any changes to a voter's registration will require a voter signature. So if you mark a note on the voter's registration component of the form, there will be a requirement for the voter's signature. And I appreciate everybody filling out their town census. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Next up, we've got a dam and park community engagement. This is a repeat of an announcement we made at the last meeting. In January, there will be 3 public meetings on the Charles River Dam and parks. The first is a hybrid meeting on January 16th from 6:30 to 8 at Memorial Elementary School to share information on the park design project and gather early community feedback. Second is a Zoom meeting on January 24th from 6:30 to 8 to share information regarding the town's approach to dam removal and the upcoming state-led environmental review process. And the last is on January 30th, 6:30 to 8 p.m., an in-person meeting covering the same dam removal topics at Memorial Elementary School. All of the meetings will be recorded, and a memo with additional detail on the town's plans to conduct outreach ahead of the meetings. I'm sorry, that was the memo to the board. Strike that from the record. Okay, next up is MLK Day at Natick High School. Natick's 19th annual Martin Luther King Community Celebration will be at the high school at 10 a.m. on January 15th. And special thanks to the many event partners, Greater Natick Interfaith Leaders Association, Spark Kindness, Town of Natick, of course, Natick High School, Natick for Black Lives Matter, Natick is United, Natick Pegasus, of course, Natick 180, and others. It is a celebration, and it's a very moving celebration. And just to reiterate, it's at the high school this year. It previously has been at Kennedy School, so it's at the high school, 10 a.m. on January 15th. Another big item is what's called Help Us Fill the Van. Donate a non-perishable pantry item to the Natick Service Council on MLK Day. We encourage community members and event attendees to bring donations to fill the van. Items can be dropped off on Monday, January 15th from 9:30 a.m. to 12 at Natick High School. And items needed include, obviously, unopened, not expired, cereal, dish soap, brownie mixes, cake mixes, frosting, toilet paper, bouillon cubes, spices, black tea, tomato paste, gravy, and cream-based soups. So please donate if you can, if you're going to be in town, or even if you're just driving by and not going to the event. Let's fill that van up. That's it for announcements. Okay, on to public speak. Any individual may raise an issue that's not on the agenda, and it will be taken under advisement by the board. There'll be no opportunity for debate during this portion of the meeting. This portion is limited to 15 minutes, and any individual addressing the board during this section shall be limited to 5 minutes. Do we have anyone in the meeting hall that wants to do public speak? Okay, seeing none. Do we have anybody online, Mr. Erickson?
Not that I'm seeing for public speak, no.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to appointments, to interview and appoint to the Economic Development Committee, Katie Love. I thought I saw her earlier. Okay. Okay. Ms. Love, if you would be kind enough to give us the sort of elevator pitch for why you want to be on the Economic Development Committee.
Sure, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. First of all, thank you all for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. I am now working for the Natick Center Cultural District, which has been a wonderful experience in the last couple of years. I moved to Natick in 2013. I have 2 small children who attend Brown, and I've always been really focused on being involved in the local community. I have a background in sales, business development, sales training, kind of wore many hats, and I just really believe in our community. I think we have so much potential to bring more businesses downtown, to be able to build our businesses that we currently have up and get more people downtown in partnership with all of the amazing cultural and arts events that we do in the town. And I'm just really looking forward to being part of the future of Natick for my kids and for all of us.
Okay. Thank you very much, Katie. Questions from the board or comments? Go ahead, Mr. Joseph.
Not questions so much as I'm glad you applied, Katie. Obviously, we work together. I'm the board's liaison to the EDC and also active on the Natick Center Associates board meetings too, and have 2 businesses downtown. So all that being said, I'm thrilled that you applied. I think you're an amazing contributor to the cultural district. I think you've brought a lot of energy and would give capacity to the EDC that we've been lacking in terms of sort of what I'll call marketing execution. I think you've got an ear to the ground, obviously, with the work you're doing downtown. So I think it's great. I know we do have a liaison position with the cultural district, so I know Athena currently serves on the EDC. Tangentially, I'll use the word concern with a very lowercase c, in that I think one of the things I've observed over the years is the EDC itself, I think, is sorely in need of rethinking. in terms of its role, its form, and the like. When we formed it in 2009, it was with the intention of potentially spinning it out into a 501c6 and have a public-private partnership relationship, much like the cultural district has with the town. So, I see, and having worked with Katie, she would be a tremendous contributor. She's a big thinker. She thinks strategically, but clearly gets stuff done on top of things, and that's the kind of 1-2 punch we need in terms of the volunteers in that role. So I definitely support your candidacy.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Ms. Love, for applying. I just wanted to know, excuse me, if you knew that the meetings were at 8 a.m.
Yes, I do. I believe that actually the one tomorrow that I plan on attending is at 8:30. So I have about a couple minutes that usually I give myself a little bit of leeway to get there from school drop off at the moment, but everybody's been kind so far. But yes, I am aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Thank you for applying.
No problem. Happy to do it.
I appreciate all that Mr. Joseph shared about Ms. Love, because I have gotten an opportunity to experience her in and throughout town and through the Natick Cultural Center, but I didn't know all of those things. And so I appreciate her presence as well as her willingness to serve. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sidney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really impressed by your resume, and I really appreciate your applying. I was really interested in one of the things you said in your online application. I feel that many of our policies and structures are outdated for the current situation we find ourselves in and believe change is needed, but I want to make sure we don't lose sight of the incredible things that make this town a really great place to live. I really appreciate that comment, because that really indicates the kind of balancing act we need. And I really appreciate that. I just wanted to say that, and thank you so much. And I'm really glad to hear you're also a big picture thinker.
Thank you. Thank you. I totally believe that we can find a hybrid move forward to make change, but also keep the integrity of all the awesome things that we have already in town.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Everything that prior members have said, I fully appreciate, especially Mr. Joseph's comments, because he's worked with you so closely. I did have a question, and it's just because I didn't have time to look this up this afternoon. What is a certified Clifton Strengths coach?
Oh, actually, so a strengths coach there's a large, I'm going to try and keep this succinct. So a Clifton Strengths coach is a person who, are you familiar with Clifton Strengths at all? It's basically identifying themes that you have internally that you're naturally gifted at, and it itemizes them through a testing process of about 34, and you usually focus on the top 5. And then it's kind of, with a coach, you kind of work through trying to understand how you use your strengths to your advantage. The kind of layman referral concept or whatever that I like to say is, you think about a school, and a school takes a bunch of different kids who are, all shapes, sizes, thinkers, walks of life, what have you, and we try and kind of, when we get them into school, we say, you're not good at this, so we're going to focus on what you are not good at. You're doing really well in English, but you're terrible at math, but you need to work hard at math. And the Clifton concept is, you should really focus on the things that you're already naturally inclined to be good at. So yes, of course you need to, be able to do math, but maybe your English is, your English strength is one that if you really focus on, you will propel yourself in that avenue. So it's kind of the concept of focus on what you're good at, learn about what you're good at, and then put the energy into those things, but also understanding when they can hold you back and when they can push you forward. And happy to help you if you ever want to take a strengths test. I'm happy to do it.
That could be embarrassing. I might not have any strengths. Thank you for explaining that. That was,
no problem. The BRAC Center.
All mine up.
Well, so the Natick Service Council through the BRAC Center actually does some strengths, and so I've been volunteering and helping them, and it's been a nice experience to kind of get my feet back into it. But it was a big part of my corporate culture of the strengths program, so they put me through the program in New York. Yeah.
It has to help, too, from analyzing what the EDC would need also, so that's,
Yeah, poor Paul. Maybe I'll put him through a test tomorrow or something. We'll see.
don't worry. He studied hard, I'm sure.
I'm not chairing. I get to attend and heckle the
Okay.
chair.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to appoint Ms. Love.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Joseph. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Pope. All in favor, please say aye.
We have to do.
We have to do voice, roll call, rather. Mr. Sidney,
Yes.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so 500. Thank you very much, Ms. Love. The Select Board's office will be contacting you. There is a swearing in that you have to do at the town clerk's office, so the letter from the Select Board's office will fill you in on all that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, let us now go to Select Board updates. Does anybody have something? Where do we get through all that in announcements? Not a one.
Well, I've got one brief one.
Mr. Sidney, go for it.
I am scheduled to be at the farmer's market on Saturday. Come down and talk.
Good stuff. I hope it'll be nicer weather than we had recently.
I hope I'm
Actually,
feeling
you're
well enough
inside,
to do
so
it.
it's still.
Yeah, it's inside.
Yeah.
It's at the Common Street Spiritual Center inside.
Yeah,
I'll be right inside the main door.
very good. Thank you for that, Mr. Sidney. Okay. So now let's move on. There aren't any others. Let's move on to discussion and decision. First up is a public hearing on the grant of location on Summer Street.
The person, I believe, is not, sorry.
I
I believe there is somebody to be here for that from Eversource
All right, let's-
or National Grid, and I believe they're not here yet.
Okay.
I'm looking towards,
Yeah, I don't see them yet, Mr. Erickson.
okay, thank
Okay,
you. Yeah.
so let's hold off on that one for now. And Jamie, if you would keep track of that and just let me know when.
Yeah, we'll see them when they get on, I'll let you know, correct.
Okay, so let's go on to public hearing notice, approve renewal of club special permits. Item B. Yes.
Since it's a public hearing, can we start before the time that's posted?
So the
It's
time
supposed to be
posted for the public
6:30.
hearing notice is 6:30.
Ah,
The
beautiful.
times on the agenda are always for reference only.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you for that. Good question, though. Okay.
Although the notice,
You ready for me?
I am Mr. Sidney.
Public hearing notice. The Select Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 10th, 2024 at 6:30 PM upon the application of the following clubs for the renewal of a 2023 special permit issued in accordance with Chapter 336 of the Acts of 2004 to allow the sale of alcohol at functions at which the attendees are not necessarily members of the club. Natick Lodge, number 1425 of the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks, 95 Spain Street. Paul Sanford, manager. The Francesco DeSantis Lodge, number 1411, Sons of Italy, 37 Washington Ave. Marguerite Sanchetti, manager. AMVETS Post 79, 79 Superior Drive, James Sheridan, manager. Veterans of Foreign Wars, Natick Post 1274, 113 West Central Street, Brian Prescott, manager. The hearing will be held in the Edward DeLotte Meeting Room, 13 East Central Street, as well as remotely. Anyone wishing to be heard in this matter can participate in person or through Zoom. Login instructions will be published on the January 10th, 2024 Select Board agenda. And I move to open the public hearing.
I'll second. Thank you.
Who seconded?
Moved by Mr. Sidney, seconded by Mr. Joseph. Okay. I am going to first,
Get a vote?
yeah, I'm sorry. All in favor, please say aye. Mr. Sidney,
Aye.
Ms. Pope,
Aye.
Ms. Coughlin.
Aye.
Ms. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph, excuse me, I'm changing your gender here. And I'm a yes. Okay. Discussion. Does anyone, you wanna-
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Sidney.
Is Mr. Sheridan really the manager over there?
No, and I was going to comment on a lot of that, and let me bring the board up to speed on this.
Mr. Chair, can I, just a suggestion, do you want to take them in order,
Yeah, let's
Maybe
do,
one at a time, and get
AMVETS.
through that?
Yes. Thank you. Any questions on the Natick Elks Lodge?
No questions.
No?
All set.
Okay.
I am, that's not in the packet, is it?
It is.
Is it the Natick Elks Lodge?
It's not.
Oh, it's not in the packet.
No,
Apologies on that.
okay.
Is it in another attachment?
Yeah, let me look. Yeah, I'm just looking it up in email.
I don't believe we got one for them, Mr. Erickson.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything in my email. So let us,
We have somebody at the podium.
yeah.
Mr. Sanford.
Start-
Paul Sanford, General Manager over at the Natick House.
Microphone, please.
Could you just turn the microphone on?
Mike, need green on.
Sorry about that. Is that good?
Yep.
Paul Sanford, Manager over at the Natick House. I just talked to Donna yesterday, and she had all of my paperwork. I had uploaded it all, and she said she couldn't see it on the portal, but I sent it all to her yesterday. She said it was all set, so
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything else I need, but...
Just for clarity, and I apologize, I was, had a personal matter in December that I was dealing with, but is it the same application that was, similar application? Oh, sorry, I'm looking at a wrong one. Sorry, wrong email. Never mind.
As far as I know there have been no complaints lodged on Natick Elks to this point. I probably shouldn't say to this point that I know of. I'll just leave it at that. But
Should we defer this until we actually see the application?
I would like to do that.
yeah, we probably should do that. But let me offer a suggestion, which is we can also do a provisional approval subject to a favorable email from Ms. Donovan, and then we don't have to drag Mr. Sanford back in here for a hearing. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, I move for provisional approval based on correspondence from Ms. Donovan that all the paperwork is in order
Okay.
for the Natick Lodge 1425 of the Order of Elks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sidney. Okay, all in favor, Mr. Sidney,
Yep.
Ms. Coughlin,
Yes.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So thank you for coming
Very
in.
much.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
Just
go right ahead.
I guess in discussion, this is relevant for everybody here. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be convening, as I had started a year ago with the town. We had reviewed our our on-premises liquor license policy. We're going to be undertaking one for our off-premises licensees, mostly package stores, but that's going to include club licenses. So I'm in the process of working with a small working group, including the Deputy Chief of Police, the Head of Economic Development, Ms. Donovan, and myself, just to sort of start to look at the mechanics of what we've got. We'll be including Natick 180 in that discussion as well in terms of community impact, and we will definitely be reaching out to your representation. Would love to get feedback from you as we look at that. Nothing major, but we just want to make sure that they're current and sort of reflecting what we want in the community. So thank you.
Mr. Joseph, could I ask that you include me in those discussions?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to be in there with the Natick 180. Actually,
When you're there.
Yeah.
no. I'll just have
in the
you
working group,
do
yeah,
them.
she does a
Yeah.
working group, and then you get, perfect.
Yep. Never mind.
Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Yep, you're good.
thank you. Okay, let's move on to the Sons of Italy. Any questions or discussion on Sons of Italy?
I have a question. Is there a representative from the Sons of Italy? Could you approach the podium, please?
The rest.
Is that on?
That's on, thank you. I was under the impression that Ms. Marguerite was stepping down as manager.
She has stepped down. My name's Arthur Taddeo. That should have been on the paperwork that got sent in. She has retired, and I am now the building manager and the bar manager.
Thank you, Mr. Taddeo.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Okay, any other questions?
If there are no other questions, I move provisional approval of the club license for the Francisco de Santos Lodge 1411 Sons of Italy, pursuant to confirmation from Donna Donovan that the change of manager record has been updated and submitted to the ABCC and the town.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Coughlin, seconded by Mr. Joseph. All in favor? Ms. Coughlin?
Aye.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Sidney?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you. On to AMVETS, Post 79. You know what, no, I'll just go ahead with that, that's fine. Any discussion? Unless Sidney had,
Mr. Sidney had a question, and I would ask that the Lieutenant, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, Lieutenant Colonel, I just went blank, sorry, Jack.
Jack Cunningham.
Lieutenant Colonel Cunningham approach the podium to respond to questions from the board.
Certainly.
Thank you.
thank you. I'd just first like to just read a statement, because I think it'll address a lot of what's on members' minds. We did get a notice from the Deputy Chief and Ms. Donovan that there were some issues cited by the ABCC in its return no action memo. One is the manager of record. The proposed manager who signed the application statement does not appear to be authorized to do so. The proposed manager, and I'm reading almost verbatim from what they wrote, the proposed manager is also unable to serve as the manager for personal reasons and asked the AMVETS board to find another manager of record. Second is improper signatory on the application. The person who signed the vote does not appear to have been approved by the ABCC as an officer, director, shareholder, and is not authorized to sign. The signature on the manager form does not appear to be the manager of record. Thus, again, I'm going to be looking for a motion to get a provisional approval. My understanding is that AMVETS has prepared all the paperwork to get the ABCC approval and will resubmit their application. And to ensure timely compliance, we're going to schedule a public hearing on their club license at our next scheduled meeting, which is January 24th.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, hold on, Rich. They're also going to meet with Deputy Chief Lazan at the end of January to discuss changing parameters for the outdoor seating at AMVETS, which has been a request for them. Mr. Sidney, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, didn't we have problems last year with AMVETS getting the license right? Or was that the VFW?
No, it was AMVETS, but they remedied that.
Right.
And
I'm disinclined to even give them a provisional approval until they get the application right.
Mr. Sidney, could I address some of your concerns?
Sure.
So over the last year, and Lieutenant Colonel, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, over the last year, the person who was trained to be the manager of record to replace Jamie Sheridan had gone through training with the ABCC and the Natick group. They were trying to update the records of the new officers and directors because that information and some of the documentation had been destroyed or was missing after Jamie Sheridan's role as commander and after he had stepped down. Once all of that had been put together in September, Kathy Lopez, who was the person who had been training and acting as manager of record, became very ill personally
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
and had to step down and work less than 40 hours a week.
Yes.
So for that reason, the AMVETS undertook a search for somebody who was willing to undertake manager of record for AMVETS, and I'll turn this over to Lieutenant Colonel.
Yeah, let me just also amplify what Ms. Coughlin just said. AMVETS worked to get into compliance, and as Ms. Coughlin pointed out, this was due to an illness, not to neglect or not to defiance, anything like that. So let me turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Cunningham for his thoughts on this.
The AMVETS Post 79 in Natick has been in disarray since Jamie Sheridan committed certain transgressions. He's been suspended by the AMVETS, and he's in the process of being expelled for numerous acts unbecoming an AMVET. From day one, since it came to light, some of the things that he did, we've been trying to get him off of that liquor license. We operate under a stigma with his name still on it, and some of the employees are very reluctant to continue their employment at the AMVETS because of that. We try and reassure him that he has been and will be expelled. He has been suspended, he will be expelled. We have chosen somebody of unimpeachable character, Mr. Gary Fisher. There's a monument in this town named after his father, a World War II hero, and a street. He's well known in the community. And he has agreed to take on the responsibility of being a liquor license holder for the AMVETS. We're looking forward to that, and looking forward to a brighter day when we can once again hold our head up. It came as a shock to us that an individual that we thought was honorable was in fact not honorable. So we're trying to move forward and away from that.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Okay.
I just for
Mr. Joseph.
confirmation, and I apologize, I'm not seeing it, but given the timeline of events moving forward, this has all been, in agreement with Deputy Chief Lozon. Any concerns he's had have been addressed to this point.
Yes, and I apologize. I got a late breaking email confirmation from Donna confirming that she had that conversation with Deputy Chief Lozon, and he's okay with it. Excuse me.
And I'd like to further state that I've inspected all of the paperwork and that they're currently awaiting just the Department of Unemployment Assistance and the DOR, Department of Revenue, certifications that are required. And once those are received, probably by the end of the week, all the paperwork will be timely filed.
I just, before we actually go for a vote, I'd just like to thank Ms. Coughlin for shepherding this through not only this latest period, but last year as well. She did a lot of work outside of the select board meetings to ensure that AMVETS got back on track. So if I had a hat here, I'd take it off.
Sir, may I add that we are eternally grateful for Ms. Coughlin and helping us navigate this labyrinth of paperwork.
Yeah.
We have been trying to do this for months and move forward.
Yeah.
And I look forward to whatever we have to do to accomplish this.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Do I have a motion?
I move to provisionally approve the club license for AMVETS Post 79, contingent upon full receipt of all paperwork in the office by Donna Donovan and confirmation, and the provision extends to January 24th, when they will reappear to answer any questions about paperwork or questions that the board may have.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. So that's moved by Ms. Coughlin, seconded by Ms. Pope. Any discussion?
Yes.
Members of the public, we should be
Yeah.
asking.
Is anybody from the public? I'm sorry.
I have discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Sidney.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and vote this, given what Ms. Coughlin has said. But if we have problems with AMVETS again next year, I probably won't be voting to approve a license. I don't want to keep going through this cycle of, if they can't get it right.
I think I appreciate that feedback, but I'm confident that it's in good hands now. So let's move forward, and there's been a lot of proactive work to get this right, so I appreciate all that. Any other discussion? Excuse me.
Nothing from the public?
Anyone from the public? No. I don't see anyone online. Okay, all in favor, Ms. Coughlin,
Aye.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Sidney.
Yes.
And I'm a yes also. So AMVETS is provisionally approved. Now we have, lastly, but not least, VFW Post 1274.
Thank you all.
Okay, so let us first go to, let's do our questions first and then have you speak if you don't mind. Questions? Any questions from the board? Nope. I felt good about it also. Sir, could you introduce yourself and?
Yes, my name is Robert Lynch. I'm the quartermaster of the VFW Post 1274. I'm here on behalf of Byron Prescott, is the manager of record.
Okay. Any questions or for Mr. Lynch?
Not from me, no.
This is pretty well in order, in my opinion. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Joseph. Do I have a second? I'll second that. I wanted to get on the scoreboard. All in favor, please say aye. Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Sidney? Come back.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. And that was you that seconded, Bruce?
I am the seconder, yeah. And Ms. Pope?
I have something very small before.
All right ahead.
On their application at the net income, you can't read the number. I don't know if it, that, again, it's very small, and I don't know
Yeah,
if that's just something that can be rectified at a later time.
yeah. That's interesting, because I had the number as 656.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you see?
I'm able to read that there was another.
You can
I
read it
think
at the net income? Okay.
Yeah. Which page are you looking at?
7, the last page.
See, I have.
Page 2 also has it.
Okay.
Well, page 7 of the PDF or page?
Page 7 of the PDF.
Okay, so it's page 2 of their profit and loss record, page 7 of the PDF document, so.
Okay,
It's in another place. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's 65604.
yeah, yep,
It's also on page 8.
Yes.
okay.
It's
Thank you.
also in the handwriting on page 8.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Which is 656, yeah.
Thank you.
okay, Ms. Coughlin.
Aye.
Okay, 500. Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very
Will
much.
we close the public hearing?
If I may, just before that, Mr. Chair, we were able to locate the Elks application that's now on Novus. So if you refresh your
okay.
screens, you can see the Elks application.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, close the public hearing, moved by Mr. Sidney. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. All in favor, Mr. Sidney,
Yes.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we're done with that public hearing. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so on to, let's see, do we want to do the grant of location?
We can. I do have
Yep.
one person in the room as well.
Okay.
Although the grant of location, oh no, we do have a 508 number for that person online, sorry.
Okay,
We do have that person as well.
okay. So,
The pleasure of the chair.
all right, Mr. Sidney, do you want to read this, or I can?
Sure. Public hearing notice. In conformity with the requirements of Section 70, Chapter 164 of the general laws, notice is hereby provided that the Select Board of Natick will conduct a public hearing on Wednesday, January 10th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at the request of NSTAR Electric, DBA Eversource Energy, and Verizon for obtaining a grant of location to install one new pole, number 178-3A, and one anchor guy at pole 178-3A on Summer Street, Natick, Mass. This work is necessary to provide electric service to number 21 Summer Street, Natick, Mass. Plans are on file at the Town Administrator's Office. The hearing will be held both in person and remotely. Anyone wishing to be heard in this matter can participate in person or in that virtual meeting being held through Zoom. Login instructions will be published on the January 10th, 2024 Select Board agenda, and I move to open the public hearing.
I have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coughlin. Thank you, Mr. Sidney. Okay, that public hearing is now open.
Need to vote.
Vote.
Yes, it is not yet open. I have jumped the gun. Mr. Sidney,
Yes.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. It is now open. Okay. Thank you. You guys are keeping me in line. That's good. Okay. All right. So do we have someone from Eversource on the line?
Yes, we do, and they're unmuted.
Yes,
Great, go ahead.
Yes.
this is Christine Crosby.
Christine.
Welcome.
This is Christine Crosby from Eversource.
Welcome, Christine. Can you tell us a little bit about this? I think this is a Stonegate project, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So,
A new building under construction, and we're requesting permission to install a new pole, 178/3A, with a supporting anchor guy at that pole, 178/3A.
Okay.
And the purpose of the new pole would be to provide a new service, electric service to that building, 71 Summer Street.
okay. 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 Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Sidney.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. I'm sorry you're on the phone and not on Zoom. I have a question about the location of this pole.
Okay.
And maybe, so I'm looking at what I believe is number 26 Summer Street, which is across the street from number 21.
Yep.
And there's a parking meter, and there's a little sign, and next to the building there's a some kind of a huge green junction box. So I'm trying to figure out exactly where this pole is going to go. Is it going to go like right next to the parking meter?
I don't know if I'm not looking at the same plan that y'all looking at.
Well, if you look at Google Maps, which is what I did, is they've got an image of the area, and it's pretty current because the construction is there.
Okay. I actually went out there yesterday. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I went out there yesterday, and of course there was snow everywhere, but I don't recall that pole is going to be near one of those parking meters.
Well, it's going to be across the street from the building, right?
It's going to be across the street from the building. Yep.
Is it okay if I reference the plans that are provided in the packet?
Yes, please.
Sure. So the plans provided in the packet show the proposed location of the new pole actually further down on Summer Street, more proximate to the Middlesex Savings Bank building.
Oh, down this way.
Correct.
Okay. So there's a driveway there and
going.
then a house.
Yep, keep going.
Okay, there's a pole.
Yep, and a little bit further down, there'd be a new pole placed approximately in this area.
Okay. And which way is the guy wire going to go? Where is the guy wire going to land?
The guy wire is going to land behind the sidewalk.
In
A hip guy. It's going to be a sidewalk fixture, which, you know, people, plows can go. It won't get into this. It won't interfere with plowing, and it will go behind the sidewalk.
Okay, so right now that's like a garden. So we're going to go into that garden area.
I guess that is a question for the applicant. It's a great question because there's also access to the Middlesex Savings Bank and the handicap access. I guess the question is, on what side of the ramp is the pole and then the guy wire? Or the guy pole, I guess.
Yeah.
Ms. Crosby?
I honestly, there was so much snow out there yesterday when I went out there. I didn't see any of that, but I don't know if anybody from town engineering or DPW, I don't know if they made any of their comments or recommendations, or I apologize for that.
Well,
I didn't see any of that.
When you're on site, can you explain where this was proximate to the building of the Middlesex Savings Bank?
Not really. I mean, it was in front of the building of Middlesex Savings Bank, but more closer to across the street was much more closer to the new building that's being constructed.
But the plans show the new proposed pole being on the side of the street of Middlesex Savings Bank.
Yes, but if you look across the street,
I'm trying to
where
get
the
some,
building that's being to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I apologize for the questions. But if you're looking at the Middlesex Savings Bank, I'm just trying to get a sense from where along that stretch in front of Middlesex Savings Bank the pole would be located. So if I'm looking at Middlesex Savings Bank, there's a flagpole in a landscaped area. There's an existing pole sort of on the property boundary. There's then the entranceway to the Middlesex Savings Bank.
It looks like, I mean, so I brought up the plan that they provided that was in Novus.
Right.
It's really close to the stairway.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, this is, you know, I'm concerned about sidewalk access. I'm concerned about, you know, I don't know where the bounds of town property is versus Middlesex property, right? And I was concerned about access to the parking meters and things like that, so.
Let me ask a hypothetical. Right, one of the things that was in the memo from the town engineer is installation cannot be performed until after the Winter Street opening moratorium ends in April 2024. So there's time for us to kind of get answers on where this actually sits and whether it's problematic or not. And that's kind of a question we can ask both Eversource and the town engineer. To allay any fears that we might have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
If it came down to it, Bruce, I mean, the reason they give is that they're providing power to this 21 streets. Is it possible, Bruce, or Chairman or Jamie, for them to find another location to have to rework? And I don't mean like far off somewhere, but even in this general region to figure out another place to put it?
That's kind of another question that can be asked of the town engineer.
Yeah, or perhaps come from an existing pole that's proximate to the site.
Okay.
Right.
These are potentially questions for Eversource. I don't know if Ms. Crosby can answer those either.
Right.
I don't know the engineering requirements or the power load requirements at this location.
Yeah, I personally would very much like to see, a picture of where this is going to land, as opposed to the map. The map only helps me a little bit. It's not sufficiently detailed. It doesn't really tell me, what might be impacted. It's a very tight location. That whole strip on Summer Street is a very tight location anyway. There are a lot of poles there already. And I just want to make sure that we're not going to negatively impact, plowing, walking, parking, getting to parking meters, signs, sign visibility. Like, there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. Mr. Joseph.
I think the chair hit it on the head. There's no urgency tonight necessarily. I actually went to Google Maps, and if you do the aerial view as opposed to the street view and use their legend at that point and zoom in the most, it would appear that the guide wire and the pole would go into the to the east of the flagpole. Based on just a ballpark there. But I agree, I think we need to get this right. It looks like it's safely out of the way of the ramp. I'm never a fan of poles going in the middle of sidewalks, especially within 20 feet of an accessible ramp. It just bothers me on principle, but I understand the right-of-way issue. But that said, I think you were right. Let's delay it until we can get the exact, and then we can vote something. But it doesn't look like it's going to be an issue. I think we just need to make sure we have the right paperwork.
Yeah. Ms. Crosby, would it be acceptable for us to ask that you come back on the 24th, which is our next date, next available meeting, and meanwhile we work with the town engineer and ask them to, we'll put our questions to the town engineer, probably through the town manager, and just get them addressed at that next meeting and then move on.
And probably working with Ms. Crosby to get pictures, I would think.
Yes, that's why I was asking Ms. Crosby. Yep.
Oh, absolutely. That's fine.
Okay. And hopefully there won't be 2 feet of snow on the ground again.
So it's already gone now.
Yeah, that's right.
If I may ask a picture of an example of a similar situation for this, because along this stretch of Summer Street, it does not appear like any of the other poles have a guy wire or a guy pole next to it. I think it'd be beneficial for the board to see an example of what this pole plus the guy wire would look like, just given the tightness of this sidewalk, proximate to the building, proximate to the street itself. If you have an example of that to bring, I think that would be a benefit as well for just visual sake. I know there might not be one in the field here, but it'd just be good to know what that looks like.
And can we make sure we're not actually approving something that's going to land in Middlesex's property?
Yeah. Yep. All good questions. So, Mr. Erickson, why don't I work with you to sort of collate questions, and we'll give them to the town engineer and Eversource and ask them.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Ms. Crosby's on right now, so I'm assuming she's taking diligent notes about some of these requests, but we can certainly do a follow-up after the meeting.
Okay. All right. Very good. So let's postpone any decision on this. I know Mr. Durant is here. Are you here to talk about the Eversource poles?
Yes, David Durant, 1 Mark Street, Precinct 5.
Mike, please.
He's on.
Turn the mic.
He's on. He just was walking up.
Oh, okay.
The light's on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, perfect.
Well, I'm not available on the 24th. I won't be in the state. So unfortunately, I won't be here, so I'll state my concern tonight. I don't think the select board should approve any new pole installations for Eversource or Verizon until the double pole situation in the town is satisfied. They are violating General Rule, Chapter 164, Section 34B, which was part of the Electric Industry Restructuring Act in 1997. They're also violating the town bylaw 78A, which includes a fine if poles aren't removed in a certain time frame. It's getting kind of ridiculous in the town, where I've seen double poles just driving here on South Main Street that have been in that location and should have been removed years ago, years ago. And at $100 a day fine, according to our bylaws, we could hire 3 people to go around and manage this and still make money on it, and save the taxpayers money and a safe environment for them to walk, bike, ride, and walk their dogs. It needs to be addressed. I've heard it wasn't enforceable in the past from the Select Board. It's a law that's not enforceable from the Select Board, but I find that kind of silly. I don't think we put laws in the books that aren't enforceable, and I don't think we have bylaws on our books that aren't enforceable. And I urge the Select Board to move forward and get these utilities to react or fine them appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let us agree to move this. That will be, that's kind of, well, I'm not gonna.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to recess the public hearing until the 24th, or do you want to close it and open a new one?
Let's recess to 24th. Are you making that motion, Rich?
I think you can just recess. I don't think you need a motion.
Sure, I don't need a motion. Okay, let's do that then. Okay. All right. On to the next one, water and sewer abatement appeal.
So just for clarity for everybody online, the public hearing has been continued to the 24th.
Right.
Just past, the board has typically taken an action in that case. I know you can probably just do a recess, but the board has typically just voted to continue to the next meeting.
We can do that.
And have a just date certain, and yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make that motion, continue to the 24th
Okay.
at 6:30.
Mr. Sidney, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Coughlin. All in favor, Mr. Sidney?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
Yes.
Ms. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we're on to the 24th. Okay. Now, we're on to the water and sewer abatement appeal. Let me first ask Mr., and I hope I'm pronouncing your name, is it Hierro?
That's really good. Hierro, yeah.
Could you please give us sort of a summary of what your abatement request is? Sorry.
Of course, absolutely. Want to do a mic check? You guys online hear me okay?
Are you okay?
You're good.
Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for hearing me out tonight. I'm a Natick resident as of July 2022. My name is Geraldo Hierro. It's actually easier if you remember that. Geraldo Rivera guy, for those of you that have the wisdom of age like I do, and remember him from the 80s and 90s, Geraldo is a good way to call me. We moved into the Greystone area, a development a little bit considered South Natick. And I'm here to appeal to an abatement process that was denied based on an incident that occurred middle of 2023 regarding a water leak in our irrigation system. From this point, I'm glad to give any context, but essentially it was failure of 2 things. One is the WaterSmart system was mostly inoperative for a large part of 2023, indicating that we could not do our regular checks of spend, and we could not do our normal alerts for leaks that we relied on. Unbeknownst to us that the system was down, we were alerted to the water leak simply because our bill came in. The bill came in July. I actually have the date right here and a timeline. Give me 1 second. So the first alert was July 20th, when we got an email from the Unipay system that our bill was $2,400 and above. At that moment, we the very next day, contacted the city, tried to figure out what's going on. The city confirmed that this was the irrigation system, and it also confirmed that it was potentially a leak. We immediately remedied the leak. That very day, we started with the remedy. We shut down the water irrigation. The very next day, we actually got our landscapers to find and mitigate the leak. So at that point, we knew that the system was no longer leak. However, based on the fact that the bill that had come in actually corresponded to a June 1st reading in the 3 months previous, we knew we were in for a doozy, because not only was the $2,400 bill corresponding to time past, the entire month of June and up until July 20th, we knew that the leak was still leaking. So we made calculations. We put in an abatement appeal for the irrigation process, which was understandably denied based on policy. But the next bill came. I had already made some calculations. I kind of knew what was the hit, and it was $5,900 bill. At that point, we put in a second abatement request, which was also denied, and this brings us to now. Ultimately, the rationale is that we came to rely on the WaterSmart system, both for tracking our usage and the alerting system. In fact, we signed up for the WaterSmart system August 2nd, 2022. It was working perfectly. We got a random alert in October of 2022. It was an email on October 4th, which was a few days after the reading, and we thought, we're covered, we're great. Leaks are well taken care of. But when we talked to the city and we tried to access a WaterSmart system, we were informed that the WaterSmart system had not been working for a few months. We couldn't see our usage for the past 3 months at that point in time, so we didn't have any way to track the usage, and no alert ever came. The city did take care of alerting us, but unfortunately the alert came by way of a mail, an actual physical piece of paper that arrived on July 24th, 4 days after we had detected the leak. At that point, obviously, we had to move stuff from savings, put one of our kids to work, sell a kidney, but we managed to pay. So we decided that we were not going to be delinquent on the payment. We pulled through, but there was significant hardship, and savings diminished because of this. The reason of the appeal is because of that. Although we understand clearly that the policy doesn't cover irrigation leaks, it is a circumstance of the WaterSmart system and the failure to indicate a system that we were told was going to be a great reliable source to detect leaks was just not working. We did determine that if the WaterSmart system had been working, then the June 1st measurement, the one that ultimately comprised the $2,400 bill, would have been adequately done a few days later. Based on the October 4th alert that we got the year past, we expect maybe 3 days after the reading, we would have gotten an alert that would have allowed us to mitigate the problem and probably save over $4,500. So we're seeking some sort of restitution for that extra. And I did make calculations of spend based on, with Judy's help, what our neighbors' spend was in terms of usage and consumption for similarly sized plots. So all our calculations aren't based on the entire bill. They're based on what would have happened if we didn't have a leak. How much would we have spent? It was a very hot summer, so we understand how irrigation was probably turned on. That year we did not have any dry demand for irrigation, so we went very conservative in terms of what we're asking for, and it comes out to something that we believe is fair and responsible, comparative. And that brings me to the end. Here we are.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yarrow. Questions?
I had a question. So I use WaterSmart, and it's set up to send me text messages, so they're instant. I'm looking at, so the documents I'm looking at show that you received a WaterSmart, I have so many windows open, a WaterSmart notice in July, and you anticipated that there was a problem, and that's your 2,000 and change bill. But it wasn't until October, after the second bill, that you initiated irrigation repair?
No, we did not get a WaterSmart alert over text or email at all. We haven't gotten one for this particular leak. The way we were alerted is that we saw the Unipay bill, and that started a phone call to the city, very helpful with Judy. And she helped determine and pull out measurements. That's how we determined it. The water leak was fixed the very next day. So the water leak was fixed between the 21st and the 22nd of July. Our abatement process for the first bill, the $2,400 bill, happened around that time frame, end of July. We actually put in the abatement for the first bill on the 31st of July. And then the second bill, the bill with the $5,900 came in October 4th. That second bill also merited an abatement process. We put in the abatement process on October 10th, 6 days after the bill. The leak was fixed the very next day.
So the question, so I'm looking at a Water Smart notice written by mail, July 19th.
Correct.
And after that, you initiated repairs. So on the read date of September 1, that's the $5,729 irrigation bill. Why would you have had that high of an irrigation bill if?
Well, because September 1st accounted for the use of July, right? And we didn't repair the leak until July 21st. So that's 21 days of a leak.
The September 1 bill is for a time period of June 1 to September 1.
Okay.
So it's a previous period, obviously, and then it takes about 15 days to a month to get the bill out.
Although we did get a physical mail, I don't know if that's what you're calling a Water Smart alert, it was issued or written on July 19th. We know this because it's on the actual piece of paper.
Right.
But it didn't get to us until July 24th via physical mail. It was a weekend. July 19th, I think, was a Thursday. The weekend happened. July, if I'm recalling correctly, 24th was either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And by that time, the leak was totally fixed.
So did you have the irrigation system installed in 2022?
No, so the house is actually new.
Right.
The house was built and delivered in May 2022. We actually checked with the builder if that was under warranty, and unfortunately, May 10th was the date that the house was no longer under warranty. It's exactly 1 year, May 10th, 22 to May 10th, 23. So they said, sorry. So the irrigation system, we have no idea what could have happened. It could have been natural causes. The reason it only happened in May, we believe, I backtracked and I said, well, let me do some math. And I believe that around May 18th or somewhere abouts is when it happened, is when we turned on the irrigation system. It was getting hot and muggy. We had turned everything off for winter. We had done the typical blowout of the water. So I have no idea what could have happened. Could have been maybe a little bit water there, frozen pipe, something burst. We couldn't detect anything other than the pipe was ruptured. But it wasn't until it got hot and muggy and the grass was looking a lot more yellow than normal that we started turning on the irrigation system, and that's probably when the leak happened. Now, the leak was underground. It was something that we couldn't detect from the outside. But the leak was significant, about 500 gallons a day. That's a whole hot tub full of people playing around in it a day, which is a lot. And this accounts for the very large bill. As best we could determine, we did some ground analysis too. Where was this water going? Is it going into our basement? Is it going to our neighbor's basement? Well, it turns out that there's a tiny slope that was detected and the water was moving to some sort of conduit that made it just go to the drainage. So we did not detect any further damage, and that was a really good thing. But once it was fixed the day after.
And then my last question is for Mr. Erickson. Could you talk about the WaterSmiths? I use Water Smart, and I was unaware that it had been down. Could you talk a bit about that?
I'd have to research that a little bit more. The Water Smart system, one thing about the Water Smart system is, and this is a newer property, so it's with the newer technology, some of the older technology that's still tied into the Water Smart system might only be updated on a monthly basis, whereas some of the newer technology is more real time. I don't know if it's exactly real time, but it's just more real time than on a monthly basis. I'd have to confirm the outage at this time. I'm not debating. I just don't know for sure if there was an outage. I do find it interesting that there was also a letter sent, in a good way, sent from our staff at that time, which to me indicates that there might have been some type of uniqueness about this situation. So I'd want to confirm that with the water department, though, to confirm that there was an outage. I just don't know for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't have that answer for you tonight.
Okay. So, what do we want to do here? Do we want to, I think the resident has done everything in their power to try to fix the leak and, is using Water Smart and did not get the information in a timely manner. And as a result, you know, for 500 gallons a day is going to add up real fast to a large bill. Is there anything that we can do to help mitigate this cost at this meeting, or do we need to do further research on it?
So that's really the pleasure of the board. In the past, for irrigation systems, and one of the reasons among many why irrigation systems in the policy doesn't necessarily have a remediation measure afforded to the deputy TA or town administration, is the water was used. It's not as if we can remediate something not going into a sewer system, for example, from the bill. The water was used, and it's just challenging for us to know what direction the board would like us to go in with regards to potential abatement, assuming that's the direction you're going today. In the past, what the board has occasionally done is looked at historical averages of the property, which is, as we know, a little bit difficult in this case because it's a brand new property, but that has been in the past, and then billed at that tiered rate of the historical averages. In this case, we only have 1 year, and so we usually took the average of the previous 3 years. What we did do is look at, also in the past, the board has looked at, because the water was used, so by abating this completely or partially, it is an impact on the other users of the system. That's just for the knowledge of the board. What the board has also done in the past is, depending on the situation, looked at billing, maybe looking at the historical average or a last year average or an average of the neighbors, charging that, but then billing the additional at a lower tier, like a tier 1 rate, because it is a tiered structure, so that as more water is used, the cost goes up. We did look at that scenario whereby we looked at the last year bill, took that as historic. I know we don't have 3 years, but we took that as historic, and then did a calculation on the amount used above that if billed at a tier 1 and what that bill would be for both the bills. It's just another way of looking at it, and it's consistent with how the board has looked at that in the past. It's hard, and I appreciate the work of the resident here looking at how the other people have used it, but the board has not used that approach in the past. We were just trying to look at what might be a viable approach compared to how the board has looked at these types of situations in the past, should the board want to and desire doing an abatement. It's also the pleasure of the board to ask us to look at 3 or 4 different other ways of calculating it and come back at the next meeting with those calculations. So it's really the pleasure of the board. If you want, I do have those numbers here.
Yeah, if we could
certainly
just go through some of those numbers, and you know, we have sort of the gross, in every sense of the word, figures.
Sure.
Of 6,200, but.
So based on last year's figures, the 2 bills in question, the heavier bill, which is the October bill, but the June 1 to September 1 date, my understanding is last year's usage was 107 units. This year's usage was 304 units. The other bill, the usage was 93 units, whereas this year's usage was, 107 units, and this year's usage was 411. 411.
Yep.
My apologies. Last year's usage on the previous bill, the May bill, or the bill that covered the May timeframe, was last year's bill was 93 units, whereas this year's was 156.
Okay.
And that's just for the irrigation meter. The rest of the bill is not in question, is my understanding. So recalculating the bill, if it were just to be last year's usage of 93 units, I'll start with, I'll call it Bill A, which is the bill date of 7/18, covering the period leading up to the end of May. So it would have been when it was first turned on. 93 units, if that were calculated at the present year rates, would have been $1,172.79. The additional usage of 63 if it were billed, 63 units if it were billed at just Tier 1, that would be an additional $619.92 for an adjusted bill of $1,792.71. So the abatement on just that bill would be $619.92. On the other bill, using the same math, same logic, same calculations, 107 units would be $1,372.79. The additional usage of 304 billed at Tier 1 would be $1,364.96 for an adjusted total bill of $2,737.75 with an abatement.
Amy, could you repeat that, please?
Sure. Adjusted bill of $2,737.75 for an abatement of $2,991.36.
Okay.
So so for the first bill, the original dollar amount is of just the portion that is related to the irrigation meter. One thing to note is we do have a $5 fee per meter, so that is also calculated into the numbers I provided. The bill, just again, the irrigation component is $2,069.96. The adjusted bill would be, based on this proposal of math, $1,792.71. For the second bill, the original bill, $5,729.11. Updated or adjusted bill, $2,737.75. Total, yes. 3,800.
I get 36,1128.
Oh, sorry, yes. I was looking at the wrong number. Yep. Sorry,
What did you get,
3,500,
Paul?
correct.
36,1128. I just took the abatement amounts of 619.92 and 2991.36 and added those abatements together.
So what was the second figure? I wrote that down.
For Bill B was 2,991 and 36, if I heard correctly.
Yeah, I wrote that down wrong. Okay, thank you. All right. 619 plus. And what was your net figure? 361128?
Yes.
Correct.
So they have paid.
That would be the,
That's the abatement.
that's the abatement amount, correct.
Got it. Okay. Does anybody want to do a motion?
Assuming that's the pleasure of the board.
So that's what we want to do, and I think we've done this previously, so I think, yeah. Does anybody want to do the motion? I'll do.
Actually, in discussion, I mean, I'm sympathetic here, and this is a tougher one. I mean, I think I'd like to get more research to understand what happened with WaterSmart. I think one of the things we strive to do is educate the public that we have a system in place that they can rely on. I don't know what warranty the company gives or we give. Obviously, it's a sort of provided as an additional tool, but we don't assume responsibility for it necessarily. But I can't think in my now almost 2 terms serving on this board, anybody coming as well prepared, articulate, and prepared to deal with a leak as this gentleman has. And, you know, my thinking is, and I appreciate the administration's calculation of the abatements, but I'd be inclined to split the difference between what the resident is proposing at 6,200 and the proposed abatement of the town administrator, and potentially move an average between the two. You know, I think in proposing an abatement of 4905.89, sort of it's deference and shows you know, reasonableness, I think, in the sense that yes, this will go back to the ratepayers, and yes, there are lots of costs and risks associated with owning a home, but at the same time, I think, you know, we try to encourage our community to take advantage of these tools, and in this particular case, they had done so. So I feel comfortable doing that.
Thank you for that, Mr. Joseph. I had the same opinion that you know, as you folks always know, I'm always a walking infomercial for WaterSmart. So it is a failure of that particular system, and I agree that we should pursue it with the vendor and see if we can, get some assurances that there's at least some sort of fail-safe or backup, or, because people do rely on this, stuff happens, right? And that's just the reality of the world we live in. So I agree with Mr. Joseph, and I think we've had a few of these abatements, and the level of research and comparisons and the activity to remedy the situation, they're all, relatively immediate things and thorough. And so I'm supportive of the 490589 suggested.
And to be clear, just predicated on the confirmation that there was the outage, but I'm not disputing that. We just want to make sure that that's copacetic. So.
Yeah. So do you want to make that motion?
So, yeah, so I move an abatement in the amount of $4,905.89, subject to confirmation by administration of the outage.
Okay, let me just ask a question of Mr. Erickson. If we do not confirm the outage,
Just to clarify, you mean if there was no outage?
If there was no
We'll
outage.
confirm whether or not there was an outage. That I don't want to
Correct,
debate.
I said it incorrectly, that's right. Could we then come back here and look at that 361128?
I mean, you could vote that now. You could always
what I'm
say if there
wondering.
was no outage, then this is the abatement,
Yeah.
or we can certainly come
Yeah,
back.
like an A and
I
a
want to be
B.
mindful of the
Right.
residents' time as
I'm
well.
okay with that
Yeah,
amendment.
okay.
Sure.
Okay, and I will second that. And
What's the
any
motion?
discussion? The motion is 490589 abatement, subject to confirmation of the Water Smart outage. And if not confirmed,
No, if the confirmation says that there was no outage,
keep
that makes
saying
sense?
that
We're going to
wrong.
confirm either way.
Yeah. Okay, thank
I
you.
don't want it to be like,
We'll call
oh,
it
we didn't confirm that.
investigate. If the investigation comes up.
If investigation is naked.
And if I may add one thing, the confirmation that the system was out was done when we called the water department, and I forget who it was, but it was over the phone. But one of the things that I would make sure that I check is that I come from an IT world, make sure that the system was out for our house. Because it's a newer property, maybe the old houses, maybe somebody says, no, it was working for 80% of the people. So it's mostly around that.
Okay.
And I'm not debating that. Unfortunately, we don't have that person here. I just want to make sure that we just, for the board's sake, confirm that as
Or
well.
just belt-in suspendering.
So the no outage,
Discussion, huh?
the no outage amount would be 361128?
Right. 3611,
28.
yes. I just wrote it down. Okay. Any discussion?
Who seconded?
That was seconded by me. Okay, all in favor? Mr. Sidney,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Coughlin,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So thank you again. I can tell you that you are an IT guy because there's a logic and an order and an analysis that went into this. So appreciate all the homework you did, and you made our task a little easier tonight. So
I'm glad
appreciate
to hear that. And Happy New Year. As for our next step, how would we know what?
Sure. So once we confirm, a letter will be provided, and what usually happens is a credit goes onto the account. We can certainly, if that's problematic, we can certainly work with you on a potential rebate, but usually it's a credit onto the account that we would process on our end through the collector treasurer's office.
Okay, I appreciate it. So the letter will be physical and it will be coming from the water department? Or
It'll be coming from the town administrator's office. John Marshall, who did the initial letter, will work with Donna Donovan in the town administrator's office,
Perfect.
and we'll circulate it internally and we'll get a copy to you.
Fantastic. Thank you for the clarity. And have a great night, everyone.
You
Thanks,
too.
Thank you, you too. Sorry for the
Happy New Year.
Sorry for
Happy
the
New Year.
inconvenience.
Welcome to Natick for a year now.
the watershed moment.
Well, you probably recharged the water aquifers, so.
Yeah, there you go. I don't think we need that now, though. We have plenty of
Not
water in our
anymore. We
aquifer.
did then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, next up, the facility management increase of the rates at the William Chase Arena as supported by the Rink Oversight Committee. I'm happy to do that, Jamie, because I was at the Rink Oversight meeting.
Sure. And we also have Travis Farley on as well from the Rec
Travis
and
on, I
Parks
didn't
Department.
notice. Travis, you stayed here this late, so I'll give it over to you, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. For those of you who don't know, Travis Farley, Deputy Director of Community Services for Parks and Rec. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Rink Oversight Committee to notify you that FMC, or Facility Management Corporation, has notified us that they plan on raising our rates nominally for the 2024-2025 season. We're going to be going up from 262 to 272 for a 50-minute sheet, and 314 to 326 for a 60-minute sheet. And again, this is for the 2024-2025 season, so next year. We wanted to get ahead of it to let our users know and give them plenty of time to notify everybody that this rate was going to be going up for next year. That's why you see it coming before you now. The rate hasn't been increased since 2020. Before that, it was 2016. So it's roughly every 4 or 5 years. FMC, to their credit, has really tried to keep the costs in line with other public rinks. And we did take a hard look at the surrounding rinks, and we try to be competitive. We try to be similar to what they charge locally as well for other similar rinks across the board. But the vote was unanimous, 5-0, in support of the rate increase, and that's why you see it before you now.
Thank you, Mr. Farley. Any questions or discussion?
Seems reasonable based on what the Metro West average is and the typical increase cadence.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Pope. Yeah, and in the discussion there, Mr. Farley pointed it out, they haven't had an increase in a couple of years, but they've also invested in the facilities, also with the roof, new locker rooms, new storage. So we're getting great bang for our buck in terms of supporting youth hockey. They support youth hockey, adult hockey, high school hockey. It's a very frequently used rink. And I did not try to extract a Zamboni ride, although that was in my, I really want to do that someday. Anyway,
Let's see if we can make that happen.
All right, thank you.
They can bid for it. Do an auction item for something.
That's an idea. I'd do it.
I think it should be a privilege of the chair.
I'd do it. And just like, and they'd run me over with the Zamboni. Okay, so I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Joseph, seconder.
Second.
And seconded by Ms. Coughlin. All in favor? Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Ms. Coughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Sidney?
Yes.
And I'm a yes also. Awesome. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the time, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it in person. So thank you.
No, you're not. Just stay on. Hi, Travis.
Be truthful.
Have a good night.
We don't mind. You too.
That was the Eddie Haskell clause.
Yeah, it was Mrs. Cleaver. Okay. Next up is Johnson School Next Steps. Jamie, can you give us a quick rundown?
Absolutely, and this is more just a general update. It doesn't actually require a decision, but it's on here just because we wanted to make sure that the board was aware. So Johnson School, in December, the school committee voted to basically, I guess, return the school to the town or the select board for care, custody, and control. This is a fairly standard part of the process when a school is determined or deemed to not be a necessary school use under Mass General Law. There's a very defined process, and they started that process in December by taking that action and that vote. Since that time, the school department, along with myself, we had to sign and submit some paperwork to the state, DESE, Department of Education and Secondary Education. There is also an action that is going to be asked of the Select Board, which is basically to sponsor an article for this upcoming spring annual town meeting, because there's a town meeting action that has to be taken. And then one of the reasons why we're doing it now in advance of the school closing is the school committee needed to take that vote at least 6 months in advance of when the school would be no longer in their use, and they're anticipating that this is the last school year for the use of that school. That's been worked through with the superintendent, with the school committee, with the residents, with the neighborhood. So this is the last year for that school as a school. So this is more of an update to this board. One, to just let you know that you will be asked to sponsor, or it'll be on your docket to sponsor an article at the upcoming town meeting. The town meeting, you just opened the warrant tonight. So you'll be seeing that on a future agenda, sponsoring this action of town meeting. And two, one thing that we've been looking at for a number of months, and it's part and parcel with an initiative that we've been looking at actually for a number of years on the town administration side, is really space management and use of space. The Johnson now being something that would be divested back to the select board. Our intent is to wrap that, our being town administration's intent is to wrap that into that conversation. You recall we've been trying to really understand what the future of the Cole and Rec and Park Center is. We're also working on this human services study that should be wrapped up actually at the end of this fiscal year in June or July. And the human services study, one of the outcomes is to provide us with some understanding is from the space need perspective. Programmatic, yes, we need to understand where we're taking human services programmatically, and that's more of a birth to later in life exercise. So it will include rec and parks. It will include the entirety of the community services department, human services, mental health, you name it. But there's also a corresponding understanding as to what space do we need to actually accomplish that. So our intent is to take sort of a multi-pronged approach to this analysis. In the short term for the Johnson, what we're going to start looking at is really what is the building shape? What do we need to do for short-term costs, if any? Because it's going to take us a little while to finish the long-term study of, once we get the human services study, then what's next in our space needs analysis. We're going to have to look at the Cole. We're going to incorporate the East School into this look, and the Johnson School will be part of that as an overall, along with our other existing buildings. That, though, is a longer study. So first we're going to take an immediate look. What do we need to do to secure the building once it's brought over to the town? It's in good shape. Fortunately, we have a shared facilities department, so we already know the shape of the building, but there's still going to be some cost there. We also might, in the short term, look at what infrastructure might be necessary if we need to use it for a purpose. The Cole Center is in pretty rough shape. There might be a need to use the Johnson in some way. But even before that, what we are also anticipating is sometime this spring, likely in the March timeframe, doing some type of community forum with the neighborhood, just to listen, to ensure they're aware that we want this to be a public process. We want public engagement. We're not sure where we are yet, but when we do go along with the process, there will be some public engagement. Similarly, we're going to be engaging with the residents of where the Cole Center is located, similarly with the East School, when we go into this. But again, that's down the road. That's several months, if not 6 to 12 months down the road, because we also want to have that human services study to help inform that work as well. I just want this board to know that we do intend to have that process be inclusive and have a lot of public engagement. The reason why we would start a meeting immediately in the Johnson neighborhood is just understanding that school is still a fabric of that neighborhood at this time, and we want to be mindful of that and listen from that. The Cole has been also a fabric of the neighborhood, but the Johnson is going through a pretty significant change. So that's it in a nutshell. I do intend to, once we go a little bit further along about understanding the building, I intend to just provide a little bit regular updates to the board. I can certainly put the intent in writing if the board would like to have that, just so we can map out what the next steps are. I have 2 pages of notes just from my meeting that we had a number of weeks ago on this subject. Again, we're looking at the short term, but also the long term. Short term more as a short term vision. Long term is going to be that long term understanding of space needs holistically in the entirety of the town, including the Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. I think
questions on that front?
I would like to get it just a high level.
Sure.
Some of the things that you have, I don't want you to go crazy on it. You got other things you need to be doing.
That was my intent. I wanted to make sure that you heard first, though, before you saw an agenda item to sponsor something on town meeting floor.
Yeah.
And the vote has already been taken by the school committee. They did that in December.
That was in December, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mr.
No,
Johnson?
thank you. I appreciate it. Definitely, that summary, I think, would be helpful for community members. That's obviously a very sensitive topic for a lot of neighbors. I guess the one question I had, so you were looking at the building shape, and you mentioned that. Can we repurpose it if it's not going to be used as a school? Given its ADA limitations and some of the things that sort of gave it constraints, like, does that represent a change of use and therefore create a situation where it's not usable because of those limitations?
So there's a lot of considerations that are part of that question. Some of it's cost.
If the answer is depends, that's fine. I just was curious.
Some of it depends on the future use.
Right.
Some of it depends on, so with a change of use, you are correct. There's an obligation to bring the building up to code compliance. The full extent of that cost, we have estimates from years past of studies, and it's not inexpensive. It's certainly expensive, but much depends on then what is that next use. The past studies were really looking at it as a school use, which under Mass General Law and DESI rules and regulations has certain obligations and requirements for types of classrooms and other spaces. If it's, it really depends on what that next use would be. A couple of things that we have on our plate is really just looking at, again, the internal needs in the community services, rec and parks, even the school department. They've talked for years about a family resource center or some other type of a resource center that we're sort of out of space here in Town Hall. We'll have a new superintendent starting next year, so we'll have to incorporate that person's vision into this as well. And some of the other services that are coming out of the community services and the human services study. There might be a need for incubator space, right, for some things. Whether it makes sense to go there is another story. One thing that in working with the building commissioner, so much depends on what the use is and how you access that use will determine what improvements we need to do to any building. This isn't unique to the Johnson School.
Sure.
So, long story short, I don't know yet, and that has to be part of what we analyze. Yeah. We do know that it does have good bones. It's just got a lot of compliance challenges as well, ADA compliance challenges, and other challenges.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for that. Next up is referral of zoning articles for spring annual town meeting. This, I think, was an Amanda memo.
Correct. I can just briefly, in brief, again, this is part of the Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5 process for zoning amendments. As I explained to the board in the past and the public, Section A, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5 obligates that a zoning amendment proposal be submitted to, in the case of a town, the select board for referral to the planning board. There's timelines for that referral. The select board has to do that within, I believe, 14 days or 10 days of the submission. That starts the time for the planning board to schedule and hold the public hearing that's required under Mass General Law. That's separate and distinct from our town meeting process. It does not mean that it's on the warrant for town meeting. The planning board or any sponsor of an article would still have to submit that for town meeting. firm recommendation for the last 8+ years has been, let's decouple that a little bit, especially for more complex zoning. And we've done that successfully a couple times through the years, but now we're actually really getting traction with that. And this is a great example of that. In brief, this is a continuation of the work that CED and Amanda and the Planning Board have been doing. This article actually was on the town meeting warrant for the fall, but it was still being worked on, and the desire was let's move it to the next town meeting. So the intent is for them to sponsor for this upcoming town meeting, but this is really just to allow them to start their public hearing process.
Yep.
And it's related primarily to the use regulation schedules and some of the off-street parking and loading requirements in the zoning bylaw.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Is this 1 or 2 articles they're proposing?
2.
Technically 2. They might hold them as one public hearing. I'm not sure how the planning board intends to do that.
Yeah.
But they are 2 amendments.
Okay.
Or 2 sets of amendments.
So any questions? And do I have a motion to refer these 2?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. All in favor, Mr. Sidney?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
Ms. Pope couldn't hear the motion.
I didn't hear the
The
motion.
motion is to refer the 2 zoning bylaw requests that were received from Amanda Loomis. Zoning bylaw, use regulation schedule and associated sections, and the others amend zoning bylaw off-street parking and loading requirements. And those are just being referred to the planning board for their review.
And just for the record, under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, there's only certain groups or people that can make the requests, and technically this request is coming from the planning board.
Right.
So the planning board is seeking, it still needs to go through, even though it's going back to them.
Right.
You still need to go through the
Requesting
process.
that we.
And it doesn't mean we support them, it just means that we let them do their job.
Right.
This is largely an administrative function
Yes,
of the
it
board
is
and
an
a public
administrative.
notification function.
Thank
Good
you.
question, though. Okay. Okay, Rich said yes. Ms. Pope? Here?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Coughlin?
Yes.
And did I ask you, Paul?
You did not. but
Mr.
I'm-
Joseph?
Yeah, second. So.
And I'm a yes also, so that'll be referred. Next up, we have refer 3 proposed zoning amendments to the planning board. And
Yep. I can speak just briefly to this, although we do also have the person who submitted the letter, Peter D'Agostino, on the call if the board has any questions. Similar to what you just voted, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, request for zoning amendments submitted to the board for referral to the planning board. In this case, it is on behalf of the owner of the 200 Pond Road property, which is, the address technically is a Wellesley address, but the property that's the subject of this proposal is in Natick, but you access it through the Wellesley property at 200 Pond Road. There's 3 proposals on here, but all for the same property. 3 zoning. I'm sure not all 3 will come to town meeting. It's really up to the proponent in this case. But you can see it does include the 3 proposed amendments.
questions, members?
Again, this does not, you're not confirming support or lack of support by taking this action. It's strictly an administrative
This is
function.
the path.
Yeah, if I can comment.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Sidney.
Yeah, we've received a number of emails about this as a board. And I want the public to know that it's not really up to us to stop or start this project. We'll refer these to the planning board and let the planning board do the right job. It's up to the planning board to vet these things, and it's up to town meeting to approve them. So I want to make that clear to the public that that's what's going to happen here. I appreciate all the opinions from the public about this, both pro and con. but it's, this is an administrative move and not necessarily support or advocacy for this project at all.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. I'm going to read a statement that I'd like to put on the record because for the same reasons that Mr. Sidney was just speaking. The Select Board is taking no position on this and will not be sponsoring this warrant article. This is a citizen's petition, and the petitioner is responsible for reviewing the warrant articles with the Planning Board and Finance Committee. It will then be up to town meeting to consider whether they're supportive of this zoning change or not. The only action the Select Board is taking tonight is to refer these articles to the Planning Board. Should the zoning be approved by town meeting, the planning board process for granting a special permit may begin. I want to be clear to people watching at home or on Zoom that the project review is independent of the zoning change, right? By town meeting approving this zoning change, that does not necessarily mean that they approve that that project is approved. I just want to be abundantly clear that that's not the case.
If I may just briefly also, oh, sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to clarify that the zoning, this process is strictly the zoning amendments, has nothing to do with town meeting articles. The proponent or somebody who would be sponsoring it, could be a board, it could be a committee, will still need to submit one or all or none of these articles for submission per the deadlines noted previously tonight for the town meeting warrant. This is strictly just starting the public hearing process in front of the planning board under Master General Law, Chapter 40A.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
And given that, and given what you just read, I guess one of the questions I have, you said the Select Board will not be taking a position. Does that mean when the time comes for us to consider town meeting articles, we will not debate this particular article?
No. Thank you for that question. What I meant by that is that the proponents, I want to be careful how I phrase this. The proponents approached us and asked if the Select Board was interested in sponsoring this zoning change as an article, and we declined to do that. Now, once it becomes a warrant article, like all warrant articles, we should offer our opinion on that. So thank you for clarifying that. I probably should have been a little tighter on my phrasing there.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, do I have a motion to refer these three zoning amendments to the planning board?
Who's moving that? I'll second.
No one has moved it, so you're...
Then I'll move it.
Kristen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kristen, I didn't hear you. Okay, Kristen and Rich second. And all in favor, Kristen?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Sidney? Sorry,
Yes.
I said Kristen, I'm sorry. Ms. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph? And I'm a yes also. So those are also referred. Okay. A special town meeting. Okay. This one is on me, so I should probably talk a bit about this. As you may recall from our last meeting, that was a joint meeting with the CBRC, we agreed that it made sense, it didn't make sense to rush through this and do a special town meeting sometime in February or thereabouts, because it would interfere with the FinCom's work, the town administration's work on their budget, and it made more sense, given the feedback that we were able to provide to the CBRC, to work on perfecting the language so that it would be ready for a special town meeting. Our intent is to have that run concurrently with the spring town meeting. And by that, I mean both meetings will be will start on the same day. but one of them will be, and I'll probably not use the correct term, and the moderator will correct me in the future, but we basically suspend one, either the special or the regular, most likely the regular, and go to the special town meeting. Our intention is that to have the special town meeting be dedicated to charter and bylaws. We are having, obviously anyone could submit any article for whichever warrant they want to put it on, but we want to urge people to submit articles that are, I'll just call them regular articles, or not dealing with the charter and bylaws, to the regular spring annual town meeting, and reserve the special town meeting for furthering and hopefully completing the work on the charter and bylaws changes. Are there, and we'll work on a date to do this essentially, and we talked about this a little the last meeting. We have to provide 28 days notice to people. Once we've announced the warrant, we can also, so any time up to 28 days before the town meeting that we just opened, can't think of the words, intend to open the town meeting. If we back up 28 days from that, that's the legal requirement to do that. I wouldn't anticipate us doing that. We'll probably announce it sometime around February, so people have plenty of time to think about what they want to put on that special. But once we open the warrant, it's going to be a very short time frame. We haven't finalized the decision on how short that time frame is, but we don't want to leave it open for weeks upon end. Again, we want to keep it narrowly defined. The reason I wanted it on the agenda tonight is to give people a heads up to start thinking about things they might want to put on a special town meeting warrant. So more information to be provided in the future. Are there any questions on the board members? Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, next up is consent agenda.
So there's one item on the consent agenda. Approve Lauren Barbo's request to occupy a public way for Juniors Pause for a Cause, 7th annual 5K walk run on April 28th, 2023. Anybody want to remove it, or should we just vote it?
Well, let's just vote it.
Move to move to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Mr. Sidney?
Yeah.
Ms. Coughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so 5-0-0. Okay, town administrator notes. Anything?
I do have a couple of just brief updates, and given the time, I'll try to keep them extremely brief. One, I just want to give a big kudos to my team for all their support that they gave me for some of the personal issues that I was grappling with in December. They were fantastic. It was just a great team effort. They were really amazing, and I wouldn't be here without them. So big kudos to them. And you all know what happened, so nothing big. Well, it was big, but it wasn't anything that is preventing me from coming back. Just very briefly on a couple other items, there was news earlier this week about state budget cuts to this current fiscal year. I've been in regular contact with our delegation, Rep. Linsky, and Senator Spilka's office, or sorry, Senate President Spilka's office. As of right now, it does not look like NAIC is impacted. Some programs that we may apply for might be impacted, but none of the immediate spending that we're in, or funding that we're expecting, based on my current most recent correspondence, has been impacted. That doesn't mean it won't be by the end of the fiscal year, because we don't know if this is the first round of many. Right now, we think it's just the one round. What this also means, though, is that we are looking at various scenarios for what that might mean for local aid leading into next budget year, and how that might impact us. We have no indication as to what that's going to be. The governor's budget usually comes out, the preliminary budget usually comes out later this month. Sometimes we even hear about what might be coming our way at the MMA conference next week. But right now, we're just looking at a couple different scenarios. Just in full openness and transparency with this board, FY20, we're in 24 right now, 25 is looking extremely tight. We are very much in close contact with our partners in the school department, talking with them very regularly, but it's extremely tight. So just giving you that fair warning, you're going to see we're hopefully going to have everything worked out, at least with a plan of attack for February. No, we will have everything mapped out, hopefully balanced, but at least with a plan of attack for February 1 in partnership with our schools. But we've been in regular contact with the school department, and I know the superintendent has been working just with some members of the school committee as well to make sure that they're informed. But it is going to be tight. Second, a couple things have been happening at the state level with regards to the request of the town to our legislative delegation around the civil service and the police department. Just want the board to be aware that there is some movement there, but it's still working through the legislative process. A couple things, and this is, you can probably find this publicly, is that there was a civil service commission and a working group to try to come up with some how can civil service, for lack of a better term, be reformed? I know that's probably not how they're terming it, but be tweaked, be adjusted. Given where we are in our process and given that we've negotiated this through contract, my stance, the chief of police stance has been, that's great, do that work. Please process our legislative request. Just want the board to be aware of that in case you get any inquiries from people about that at the state level, or next week at the MMA conference if you're going, or even just in your conversations with folks around town. We are still trying to work the legislative process as much as we can to try to advance our request, a home rule petition that the town meeting voted on over a year ago now. Actually, last year was the second vote. So for the removal of the police department unions, there's 2 of them from civil service. So just want you to be aware of that. There was actually a meeting today about that as well. Third, just very briefly, I had a good conversation today with Caitlin Madden about 5 Auburn Street, and I should have an update for this board in the coming days, and then maybe even at a future meeting we can bring them in for an update more publicly. So things are progressing. It just doesn't look like physical progress because they're doing a lot of due diligence work. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I just want to provide those brief updates to the board.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much for those updates. Okay, any select board concerns?
Go ahead.
Mr. Joseph?
One of my questions was about the status of Mount Auburn Street. I'd had a couple neighbors reach out, so thank you for that.
5 Auburn.
I mean, what did I say?
Mount Auburn.
Mount Auburn, yes. The cemetery, I'm very concerned about the cemetery.
Yes.
Great. Oh, I was wondering if we could seek an update from our legislative delegation on the club licenses and the alcohol bills that we sent.
Absolutely, yeah.
That would be lovely.
That's on the club licenses.
I know we were
and the
working on
seat
that actually
numbers.
recently with them, and they were working to advance it, but I can get a more recent update. Yep.
That would be wonderful. Second thing is at 5 Auburn, the playground equipment is still out, and the lights are not hooded. And so the lights are shining into the neighbors' houses. I know DPW is looking into finding a way to resolve that. Could you check with them and just see if it's...
Yep.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
If we can get that playground equipment out of there, it's an attractive nuisance, and We've been trying for about a year. I was wondering if someone from CED could check with the clerk's office and find out if the owner of the dog that was subject of the dangerous dog hearing has registered her business with a business license.
We can check on that.
Okay.
Yep.
I ran into Pete Cunningham today, and he said everything else was in compliance with the exception of the completion of training.
Okay.
So he was planning on providing an update to you. He said he'd send it to the board. I asked him just to send it to you.
Thank you. I'll look for that. Yep.
And that's all I had
Kristen, you
today.
got that? Mr. Sidney, are you good?
I'm ready to move to adjourn.
Okay. Wait, we got to ask for correspondence first.
Wait a minute, I think Mr. Joseph had a...
Did you?
No?
I'm sorry.
Michael, I'm just reading.
No.
I was reading telepathically.
Telepathic, the bubbles are bubbling. Okay, any correspondence? I don't think we have any. All right. Mr. Sidney, do the honors.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
That was, is that Kristen or it was simultaneous?
It was
Okay.
A2.
That was a jump ball there. It was moved by
Who
Mr.
got
Sidney.
who got the second?
We'll give that to Catherine. Edged out Kristen. All in favor, please say aye. Mr. Sidney.
Aye.
Ms. Pope.
Aye.
Ms. Coughlin. Mr. Yes.
I apologize for this. Did we do consent? We didn't do
We did.
Yes, we did. We did. It was very rapid.
I moved the whole thing and...
It was very, very rapid.
Then
All right.
I'm an aye.
I'm an aye also.
Okay.
Good night, all.
Adjourned.
Thank you. Good night. Feel better, Rich.
Feel better, Rich.